A very big shout out to Tracy Nesbitt. Thank you so much for calling my attention to this. Welcome to Nanyacim. If this is your first time of coming across this channel, sweetheart, kindly smash the subscribe button, turn on the notification so you get notified each time I upload, and please give this video a thumb up. I appreciate you all, and I want to say a very big thank you to every one of you for always coming back to watch my videos, commenting and subscribing. You all are the very best. So today we'll be checking out how CIA put drugs into Black community to destroy Black community and the Black Power movement. All right, and I am kind of asking, why did they do all this? Like, why did they go to the extreme to make sure that like a particular community it's not doing well, it's not progressing and all that? I just feel like they are too scared for you, like, they are kind of scared. I'm thinking like putting that drugs is going to like, destroy the community and probably make the community, or they probably see that the community is flourishing and all that, and they feel like, it's time to like, do this in order to like, render them useless or something like that. Anyways, let's get into the video and see.
The U.S., through the Central Intelligence Agency, they figured they could use one stone for the same target. The U.S. needed to fund the right-wing Contras to fight against the left-wing Sandinistas. But to fund a CIA proxy war, you need money. The Contras began funneling drugs to the CIA, and then the CIA, they began selling drugs to dealers within different Black communities. Not only did this enact violence and terrorism against the people of Nicaragua, but it ultimately led to the defeat of the Sandinista government. And in the Black community, crack cocaine, it became an epidemic. Now, if we put the Contra War and the destruction of the Black Panther Party into the proper historical context, we can begin to see the connection. As in 1979, the Contra War started and cocaine began being smuggled into the USA by the CIA. And then 3 years later, in 1982, the Black Panther Party was dissolved. The CIA literally put the final touches on the tactical defeat of the Black Panther Party by using chemical warfare against the Black community. And its effects, it can still be felt today.
I mean, with all the things they have done to Black community, they still do not want to rest, because as it stands, this was not just only in 1970 and 80, it is still happening today. And you all can see how drugs is not something like, it is not a good thing to be on drugs. And some people are kind of doing it to the extent that like, it ruins their lives and the rest of it. I mean, the whole thing is just so crazy. Why do they just keep targeting a particular people? I mean, with all the things they have done, so like, with all the evils and all the atrocities they have done, they are still not resting. They are still like, planning more and more and more. All they just want is just to destroy a particular community. For what reason? For not just reason. So this is me trying to tell you all, please be careful out there, especially if you have kids, siblings, you have nephew, you have nieces. Mind who they associate with, and please do your very best to educate them on the harmful use of drugs. Yes, so with that being said, let's get into these tissues and see what people got to say about it. So here we go.
Like the crack epidemic, as we know, started in Oakland with COINTELPRO. Like, people don't know the idea that to defeat the Black Panthers, the FBI implanted drugs and disease in Oakland. Like, it's proven and like it's documented that they were so afraid and looked at the Black Panther Party as a terrorist group that they poisoned the community, because these people were too powerful, and they had fears that these people could, if they all really rallied and inspired the entire nation, that they could overthrow the government. This is where the crack epidemic started. And that idea of putting cocaine and empowering certain people in the community to destroy the rest of the community. Even today, that there's people in law enforcement that, and that's the thing, like, I don't want people to think like I'm telling the story. It's not power. It's not Snowfall, this is really, when I say it's a crime series, it's talking about the criminal justice system. Like, I'm currently in school studying criminology to talk about, really, and criminology is just the study of the black man and how he has been criminalized over from slavery to today. That's all it is. And anything outside of that is sociology. So that hasn't been dealt with in a television series at all.
Y'all, I just saw this on my timeline. Let's talk about it. Every show now acknowledges that the CIA actively put drugs in minority, specifically diaspora, communities in the 80s, but at what point does restitution start happening for those communities? This is what I'm talking about. When stuff starts to get put through the media, put in TV, written into shows, what it does is two things. It slightly adjusts the narrative just ever so slowly to where we won't notice, but generations later, there will be so many iterations in the history of what actually happened. But it also does one more important thing. It socially conditions us to normalize that this happened. People believe because it's on TV, it's said and done with, and people have been paid restitutions. That's not the case. There's documentaries and shows on the Tulsa Race Massacre and what happened in Rosewood, all sorts of things, and none of those things have been dealt with on a nationwide scale.
On the black community. In the early 1970s, a highly addictive smokable form of cocaine called crack began being sold for much cheaper rates. Crack was distributed in urban communities, exploiting the people living there. President Nixon created harsh legal punishments for crack, disproportionately affecting black people who were already struggling with transgenerational poverty. Although white and black people used drugs at similar rates, with variations from drug to drug, black people are much more likely to be arrested for drugs. The war on drugs enforced over policing in majority black and Latinx neighborhoods, creating large disparities in racial makeup of federal prisons. The ratio of the federal mandatory minimum sentence for crack versus its rich white people counterpart, cocaine, is 1 to 100.
Y'all, I just saw this on my timeline. Let's talk about it. Every show now acknowledges.
I love this baby's content, but I just wanted to add something to it to kind of give you an idea of how these people work. The reason why there hasn't been any restitution is because they are master dehumanizers. Once they dehumanize you, all bets are off. But not just that. They do it to themselves. So why are we complaining? Where do you think the Manson followers was getting all their LSD? The CIA. So they could study what LSD did to somebody who was exposed to it for a prolonged period. They studied them. Oh, meth. It was to make super soldiers. Hitler's idea. And they used it on themselves to where they were going crazy killing each other. So, baby, basically all Auntie's saying is this. They do it to themselves. So basically, they just need us to stop complaining.
Yeah, and it's possible those illegals coming across are also probably buying drugs from some sort of FBI or CIA. Because like I said before, selling drugs ain't an African thing. So, yeah, the same tricks being played on us, probably being played on you. That's what I'm here to tell you. Wake the fuck up. I'm on your team. Ain't no Africans come out of slavery in USA knowing nothing about selling no motherfucking drugs. That shit ain't what we do. They told us how to do that shit. You ain't paying attention. And thank you for telling me exactly the fuck I'm trying to tell you.
The war on drugs during the 1970s and 1980s led up to the mass incarceration of black and brown men between the ages of 18 to 24. During this time, black and brown communities were heavily over-policed, and they were constantly criminalized during this time period. A well-known author by the name of Michelle Alexander coins the term the new Jim Crow to show that following the civil rights movement that Jim Crow didn't disappear. However, it evolved, and this led up to the mass incarceration of black and brown men during the war, the so-called war on drugs. Now, during this time period, the FBI planted drugs in the black community as a justification for over policing them. And I'm going to read a quick excerpt from the book, The Politics of a Darkening America, Race Against Time. In yet another confession, former Nixon domestic policy advisor John L. Richmond explained the rationale behind the war on drugs in a 1994 interview published in Harper's Magazine in 2016. The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies: the anti-war left and black people. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and the blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did.
Anyways, let's talk about this in the comment section. Enlighten me more about it. And this is where I'm going to call it a day, and see you all in my next video. Bye for now. Oh my goodness, I want to say a very big shout out to Tracy Nesbitt. Thank you so much for calling my attention to this. I appreciate you. See you all. Bye for now.